Hi, everyone. It's Sophia, and welcome to my podcast. I cannot believe that it is launch day. I'm super excited about this. This has been a long time coming. I've been planning this podcast for months, and I'm glad that it's finally time to share what I've been working on and to share all the episodes that I've been planning and producing and just kind of share my life and my story and the things that I've learned along the journey. And so, given that it's launch day, I thought this is the perfect opportunity to do a Who Am I episode where I share a little bit about who I am, things that I love, what my life looks like, and just a little bit about my life history. This is important because this is sort of a personal diary, personal journal type podcast where I'll be talking a lot about my life, and you'll probably see me refer back to certain aspects of my life that happened in the past. And so I thought it would be important to just kind of cover those aspects now, because as this podcast grows, I expect that there will be more and more people who don't know me personally, and this is just an opportunity to kind of get to know me and get to know who I am and get excited about what I'm going to produce on this podcast. So yeah, let's get into it. I am 21 years old, and clearly this is a podcast about the 20s, so I will be talking about everything that I experienced, the stories I have, just things that I learn along the journey. My birthday is on July 5th, so I am a summer baby, and I actually am kind of still getting used to being 21. I feel like I'm still stuck in 20, but 21 so far has been great, and I'm excited for what this year has to hold. I am from Miami, Florida. I grew up here, but I actually was born in Austin, Texas. My parents did move us when I was 3 months old, though, so I really haven't experienced Austin. It is a goal of mine to live in Austin at some point in my adult life, maybe post-college, if not later on, just so that I can kind of have the experience of living in a place that actually means a lot to me. But yeah, besides that, I have grown up in Miami all 21 years practically. I grew up pretty close to the beach. I was in walking distance, and while I didn't take advantage of it while I was still at home, once I went off to college, I started to really fall in love with Miami as a city and the beaches, and I would make it a point to go do like sunrises at the beach. I also just love a good pretty sky, so like sunrises, sunsets. If there is a nice sky, I will be taking a picture of it. That's just how I work. I do love a good little beach moment, although recently my family moved and we're a little further away from the beach. And honestly, I got so spoiled with being able to walk to the beach that I haven't really been to the beach since, because that would mean having to drive there. And I don't know. I just don't really care for driving to the beach. It's messy. It takes time. It takes a lot of effort. It takes planning, etc., etc. So I do miss my beach days, but it's okay. I'm not like beach deprived in any way. So yeah. And then when I was 18 years old, I moved away from home. I'm actually a senior in college right now. I go to UCLA, but I didn't always go to UCLA. So I went to UCLA my first 2 years. Unfortunately, I was one of those COVID babies who had their first year of college fully remote, and I wasn't able to be on campus and have the normal freshman experience. So instead, I spent my first quarter at UCLA at home here in Miami, all the way across the country, and I was doing school from my bedroom. Fun fact, that bedroom is actually where I started my YouTube channel, which, okay, now I'm going off on a tangent, but my YouTube channel is my pride and joy, including this podcast, although given that when I'm recording this episode, it hasn't started yet. It's getting there. It will be my pride and joy once it gets out. But yeah, I have a YouTube channel. You should go watch my YouTube videos. It's my first and last name, Sophia Jan. You can find it on YouTube. And honestly, this is like, if this podcast is the audio diary of my life, that YouTube channel is the digital diary of my life. And I would definitely recommend you go check it out, go subscribe so you can get all of the behind the scenes as to what my life looks like on video. So yeah. But anyways, I started my freshman year at home. I was across the country. I wasn't loving it. I'm going to be honest. I was just really like antsy and excited to get away from home. And that's because in high school, I was extremely academically focused. Like, my main goal in life was to get into a good college, which I think I did pretty good with, but I really did spend most of my time either studying, being in school, or doing like extracurriculars that I knew would help me get into a good college. And so I didn't have have a really great work-life balance, and I also didn't have the biggest like social life at the time. I definitely had some good friends while I was in high school, and my senior year I had this really great friend group, and that was the first time I'd been in a friend group. So I have really fond memories of that. Point is, by the time that I got into college, I knew that I wanted to have a good time in college. I wanted to have a little work hard, play hard type moment. And so I was disappointed when I couldn't go to campus and have that experience and just get to know other people and to kind of gain that independence and freedom that comes with growing up and moving away from home and starting college. So my second quarter of my freshman year, I ended up going to Hawaii of all places. Basically, I was trying to go to LA so that I could live near campus and, you know, engage in a little bit more of the campus culture. Obviously, there weren't a ton of people there, but there were people there who were living like in the college town, and I wanted to do the same thing and just like attend whatever events they were having, I guess. I don't really know what the whole goal was, but just wanted to be there. But that didn't end up working out. And so instead, I ended up going to Hawaii. The reason why I ended up in Hawaii was because there was a group of UCLA freshmen. There were 6 other people who were going to get a house in Oahu and basically just live there for the quarter, do school there. And then, of course, like when we had free time, go out, adventure. And so that was the next best option. And I ended up doing it. It's crazy that I did that looking back because I was not the most spontaneous person. And honestly, I don't think of myself as really a spontaneous person currently either, but I definitely am a lot more spontaneous now than I was back then. But I guess that was like the whole growth effect. Like I was able to have that experience, and it made me excited with being outside of my comfort zone and seeking new opportunities to grow and have like new experiences and all that. So anyways, I ended up there. I was there for 2 months. I lived with 4 guys and 2 other girls, and it was a time. I had the great experience of exploring Oahu as an island, going hiking, going to the beach, you know, the whole thing. So it was a good time, and I definitely want to go back at some point in my life sooner rather than later and spend some more time there because it's a really, really beautiful place. And then my third quarter and last quarter of my freshman year, I ended up going to LA. And so I was living in an apartment in the college town. It's called Westwood. And it was a really great time. It was life on easy mode. I was going to frat parties. I was meeting new people. I was exploring LA. I was living with a really close friend of mine who had also been in Hawaii. And I was just having a really good time. And I was also doing pretty well in school. So I really did have that like work hard, play hard mentality at the time. And then my sophomore year, so then I went home for the summer. Sophomore year rolls around and I was back and everything was back to normal. We were able to live in dorms. Everyone was on campus. We started having classes in person. It was finally the college experience that I had been craving and I was excited about. And honestly, it did not end up being what I thought it was going to be. I joined a sorority my first quarter of my sophomore year. I was in it for a quarter, a little bit over a quarter, so maybe like 3, 4, let's say 5 months. I was in the sorority, but I wasn't active that whole entire time. And that was an experience in itself. I actually have a YouTube video where I talk about my UCLA sorority experience. So if you want to go find it, you can. But yeah, I did that and then kind of decided it wasn't for me. And honestly, I was just having a really hard time with everything being back and just engaging in that kind of social culture and everything. I felt very alone. I felt like it was hard to make genuine friendships. And given that I was so far away from home, it was just an overall difficult time. My mental health also really started slipping and it kind of just went downhill from there, and that wasn't great either. And so eventually I was so miserable that I decided to apply to transfer away from UCLA. When I did it, it wasn't like I knew I wanted to leave. It was more of like, I just want to have this option just in case things continue going wrong. And lo and behold, things continued to go wrong up until the moment I got accepted into the school that I had transferred. So I'd actually only applied to one school because I knew that given how I felt about my time at UCLA during my sophomore year, I actually wanted to go to school back home. So I basically wanted to go move all the way back across country to be closer to home. And so I applied to the University of Miami because that's kind of the closest and best option for someone who lives in Miami. And so I got in, and by the time I got in, I was so dead set on the fact that I wanted to transfer and I wanted to go back home that I did. I transferred and I started my fall semester at the University of Miami just about a year ago, so August of 2022. And in between that time, I actually did an internship in New York City, and I adored New York City. It is also a goal of mine to live there. Post college is another option, but yeah, I definitely want to live there in my 20s. So if you keep following along with this podcast, expect that at some point I will move to New York City and I will be talking all about my experiences there. But anyways, yeah, I was there for an internship. I was there for 2 months. I had a really, really great time. At the time, I was also in a relationship and I was actually living with my partner, and that was an experience in itself. So that was really an interesting summer, and again, just fell in love with the city and had a good time. And then I moved back to Miami and I started school. And so I did my first semester at the University of Miami, and I quickly came to realize that when it comes to things like mental health and just kind of overall well-being, no matter, like, you can't escape it. I mean, sure, are there exceptions to this rule? Absolutely. For me, I realized that these mental health issues and just my overall well-being that I had at UCLA followed me. And while there were certain things that were better, I definitely felt a lot more at peace and I was close to home and I had that support system. It was really, really hard for me mentally because my mental health continued to go downhill. And so being back home, I wasn't living at home actually. I had my own apartment, which was really nice. My first apartment that I've ever had, actually. Well, by myself. But being back home and realizing what I'd realized in terms of mental health and well-being basically forced me to spend that year, so basically my junior year of college, working on my mental health and working on just creating strategies for myself and getting better and feeling better and all that. And I am really grateful that that happened. I also feel like being at the school opened some doors for me. It made me realize that there were other possibilities beyond what I thought there were for things that I could do in the future. And it kind of just motivated me to be more creative and stuff like that. I've always been a very creative person since I was a very little child, but I feel like both high school and then again being in college sort of took all of that, or not all of it, but a lot of it away from me. And basically over the past year, I've been able to regain it. And that's why I have this podcast and I have my YouTube channel and I have other things that I'm working on that are like passion project and kind of creative ventures that I'm doing. And honestly, the ultimate goal is that I can do this stuff full time post graduation because this is what I love to do and I would love to turn it into a career. But anyways, so yeah, the past year has really been kind of realizing what my mental state was and just working on improving my well-being, coming up with strategies, basically learning more about myself. I feel like over the last year, I've really grown as an individual. I've become more stable and secure with who I am. And I've just come to understand myself to a much deeper level than I had before. I also feel like I don't have the need to try and fit in as much anymore. I'm very secure with who I am. I love that I'm unique. I love that I'm creative. I love that I'm doing things that are different from other people, even if that sets me apart and it may seem strange to other people. It's what I love to do. And yeah, I just have so much more confidence and security in who I am. And I'm actually so glad that I had this experience. And again, I also just kind of realized that there are other opportunities for what I could do with my life beyond what I thought there were. I just feel like when I was at UCLA, especially my sophomore year, I was so insanely miserable that I was completely clouded by that misery. And I really didn't see any light. I didn't see anything good. I didn't have ideas. I didn't have things that I was excited about. I was kind of just living and surviving and trying to get through it. And once I came back, even though I was still dealing with mental health and just having to work on it, I just regained this it opened my eyes to the world and it opened my eyes to what there is out there for me. And so yeah, I'm really appreciative of that experience, even though it kind of in a way has set me back a little. It was such an important experience to have and I would never go back and change it. I know people probably think I might regret what I did, but I don't. I really don't. So anyways, then I started my second semester, and the thing about it is I was kind of in crisis at this point where I was like, why did I transfer? Like, I actually really want to get my degree from UCLA. I really want to finish my schooling at UCLA. Like, I can't believe I transferred. I thought it was going to be better here, and it wasn't. I think I just placed really high expectations on what my experience would be at the University of Miami, and they just didn't end up playing out as I had expected. And so I started to realize that there were things at UCLA that were far more important to me than there were at the University of Miami. And I genuinely thought my parents were going to kill me when I told them that I wanted to go back, because that would mean doing a whole 180 again. And I had been so insistent about transferring away from UCLA. So the fact that I wanted to go back now was like night and day, you know? So I finally mustered up the courage to tell my parents, and they were actually surprisingly supportive. My dad specifically he said, like, if you think that's where you get the best education, then I fully support it. And I definitely felt like there were a lot more educational opportunities there. And yeah, I just felt like with kind of this newfound realization that I had with my transfer experience, I could go back to UCLA and really make the most out of my last year. And so I ended up, quote unquote, dropping out of college. I made a bunch of YouTube videos on this just to kind of milk it. But I basically left the University of Miami after I got readmitted to UCLA, as I had known that I was going to commit to staying at UCLA for the next year and graduating from there, no matter what happened, no matter whether my mental health started declining again, no matter whether I was having a hard time. I was going to get through it, because first off, there was light at the end of the tunnel. I was pretty close to my degree. And second off, I had like a newfound purpose for going. And so yeah, basically I am now officially a student back at UCLA. I started summer classes at the beginning of August, and by the time that you're listening to this episode, because it comes out on September 22nd, I will be just a week away from starting my first day of school probably ever, because I don't have any plans to go to grad school currently. I'll probably end up going to grad school at some point in my life, but I don't think it'll be anytime soon after I graduate. So yeah, for right now, it'll be my first day of college ever, and I'm super excited. And again, I'm going to be vlogging everything on my YouTube channel, so if you want to go see it, go subscribe, go check it out. But yeah, I'm super excited for what the future holds. I'm excited to see where my life ends up in the next year, and then the next 5 years, the next 10 years. And of course, with this podcast, I'll have the opportunity to document everything, share my stories, share my experiences, share the things I've learned, so that other people can hear and can relate to it, as well as maybe learn things from what I've learned, so that maybe they don't make the same mistake, or, you know, they can use it when they're in a situation. And yeah, I'm just excited about having sort of this audio diary along with my video diary that I have on YouTube, and just have it as something that I can look back at, you know, in the future, share with my kids one day, share with my grandkids, just have something that kind of documents my life. And so yeah, basically that's the story about what my college experience has looked like. Like I said, in high school, I was a very academically focused person. I also didn't one big thing is I was a good child. I didn't really party. I didn't date. Like I said, I got into my first relationship when I was 19 years old, and I actually just recently got out of it. So you'll be hearing a lot of episodes on that experience coming up soon. But yeah, I've learned a lot from those experiences. And again, with high school, I wouldn't want to go back, but I also wouldn't change it, because I think that I learned so much from the experience, and it got me into a really great school. And yeah, I mean, she was slaying, honestly. She was. So that's me there. This past summer, I did an internship in Nashville. I wasn't in Nashville the whole summer, but I was there for a total of 4 weeks. And that was an experience in itself. Basically, I've done all these internships in marketing or social media marketing. I'm a big social media girly. Clearly, if the YouTube channel didn't say enough, I also post things on TikTok and the whole thing. And also, if you happen to have found me through that, hi. See, I'm a social media girly, but I don't know whether I want to do marketing long term. Ideally, I'd like to do something more with content creation and entrepreneurship. So like I said, I would love if this podcast and my YouTube channel could be turned into like a full-time career, but if not, definitely working in that industry, doing something like that, and eventually creating something of my own, whether that's a business or a service or whatever it is. So yeah, definitely, I mean, again, have no clue what the future holds. This could all change in a year's time or in 2 years' time or whatever it is, but this is where I stand right now. These are my current goals and aspirations and dreams as well, and I really hope that they come true, because I will say I'm a big dreamer. I'm also slightly delusional, not even slightly, more than delusional, but I think delusion is always a good thing to have because it can actually really get you places. And there are a lot of people out there who have success stories where they say, yeah, I was just fully delusional and believed that this was going to happen, and it did. So I want to one day come back and say I was true about that. Besides that, I love hanging out with friends and experiencing new things, seeing new things, just kind of growing and expanding my knowledge on the world. I love traveling around and experiencing new cities. I've really enjoyed being able to do internships in different cities, as well as kind of the opportunities I had in college with being in LA and being in Hawaii, and then of course being back home. And obviously I hope that at some point I'll have more opportunities to travel abroad. Oh, I forgot to mention such an important part of me. Sorry. We moved forward and now I have to backtrack. So I'm actually half Indian, half German. That is my ethnical mix. It's an interesting mix for sure, but it makes me. And there really aren't a lot of people out there in the world who have the same mix. But whenever I see them like on social media, I get super excited because I feel like, oh my God, I found one of me. But yeah, my mom is German. My dad is Indian. They both grew up there and then came to the United States for educational/work purposes. They're both scientists. So that explains why I was so academic in high school, because I had to compete with two people who have a PhD. And I definitely felt a lot of pressure with that when I was in high school. I felt like I had to match up to them. So my major is actually psychology because I initially thought I was going to go get a PhD after college and become a psychology researcher. And while that is still kind of a plan C for me, I don't think it'll be happening anytime soon. But I do actually feel very passionate about psychology research, especially within dating and relationship, which is really ironic because if anyone knows me from my other podcast, it's called You Know Me So Well. I actually have spent some time kind of working on that topic. So I do have another podcast. Now, when you're listening to this, I will let you know that podcast is no longer active. Surprise. I don't think anyone really knows that up to this date. But the point is that podcast was with my ex-boyfriend, the only person I've ever been in a relationship with to this point. And our podcast was called You Know Me So Well. It was about dating, relationship, and life in your 20s. And we talked specifically about sort of how dating works from the male and female perspective and sharing our experiences and sharing our stories. So if that's something that you're interested in, I would definitely check it out. You can listen to it on whatever streaming platform you're listening to this podcast on. And if you came from there, well, hello, hi. So glad that you're here. And I hope that you stick around and follow along with this podcast because it'll be a lot about me, and I'll definitely talk about dating and relationships and stuff like that throughout the podcast because that's a topic that I really enjoy talking about. So don't worry. Oh, and I'll tell whatever fun stories come along, my dating stories, if they're dating horror stories, hopefully not, but if there are, we'll share that as well. Any kind of relationship I get into in the future, I guess. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I'm sure it'll happen eventually, given that this is about my 20s and I plan to have this podcast for a very long time. So don't worry, stick around. It'll be here for a while. It's not going to leave you like the other one did, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm very interested in kind of dating, relationships, and would love to learn more about that. I took a really, really cool course at UCLA during my sophomore year. It was on intimate relationships. And after that, I knew that I would love to study that within a lab. And so I don't know, maybe I'll have the opportunity to do so. If not, maybe I'll come back one day and get my PhD in psychology and then have the opportunity to go ahead and study something along those lines. But yeah, both of my parents are scientists and it's definitely hardcore living in a household with them. But I also feel so fortunate to have the type of parents I do because they really have, I'm so privileged, but they really have given me the opportunity to grow and learn and kind of become independent and become the person that I am. And honestly, I would not be who I am today if it weren't for the support, the love, and the possibilities that they have provided me with. And so, yeah, I think over the past 2 months or so, I've become very aware of how amazing my life is because of them. And the journeys that they've taken to get to the point that they are now and the life that they've been able to provide, both me and my sister. Yes, I do have a younger sister. She's 15 years old. We are the best of friends, and again, very lucky to have a sister, although sometimes I consider what life would have looked like if I was an only child, just because I was an only child for 5 years until she came along. We do get asked if we are twins all the time, which makes me realize that people think I look like a minor, and I also kind of have noted that that's probably the reason why guys don't hit on me in public. Just a theory of mine. But yeah, I've gotten, like, over the past couple of months, I've gotten countless comments about how I look like I'm in high school. I look like I'm 16 or 15. Me and my sister look like twins. I get this all the time. I honestly just expect to get it every time I leave the house, because time and time again, the comment just keeps coming back at me. And it's an interesting comment. I know that it'll be great in the future when I'm older and I look younger than my age. But for right now, sometimes I just want to be taken seriously, especially because I've just turned 21 and I feel like you know how that works. There's always that controversy about whether someone is actually 21 or if they are not. And now that I am actually 21, I'd like to be considered a 21-year-old and not be questioned in that manner. But yeah, that's sort of what my home life looks like. And I've been to both Germany and India a number of times. That's usually where we go when we have a break, just because we're visiting family, since most of my family is either in Germany or in India. I've been to India 9 times. The last time I went there was actually this past winter break. And I actually went by myself for the first time. So flew all the way to India by myself and was greeted by my family on the other side, and then spent 3 weeks with them, got to travel around a little, and then came back home. So that's been my experience with India. And then with Germany, I've been there, I believe, 8 times now. And the last time I was there it's been quite a while, actually. It's been 4 years, I think. I think I went right before my senior year of high school. So that would be about 4 years. So yeah, it's been a while. I definitely miss it. I would love to go back again soon. But again, with COVID and everything, didn't have the opportunity. And now that I'm in school, I feel like it's a lot harder to travel and to kind of work around my schedule and my family's schedule as to when works best. Because again, my sister's also in school. My parents are scientists. They have labs to run. And so yeah, we just haven't been, but hopefully I will be there again soon, because it is my paradise, specifically where my mom grew up. And yeah, besides that, I've traveled to a couple of other places as well. I've been to different places in Europe and South America. I've actually been to Brazil, but I was like 1 year old when that happened, so I don't remember anything. But we recently went to Costa Rica. Well, not super recently, but recent enough, went to Costa Rica. And honestly, in the recent years, I've actually been mainly traveling around the United States. So I've covered some ground in that time. I don't know how many states I've been to so far, but I'm going to say it's probably around 10, if not more. I could be wrong about that, but it's probably more than 10 now. But anyways, yeah. So, and my goal is after I graduate in June of 2024, I'm going to go on a nice little Europe trip. So that's the goal. I'm excited about that. And again, if you follow along, you'll probably hear about it when it happens. So stay tuned. And honestly, I feel like that pretty much covers it. There's obviously like a number of small fun facts about me, but I feel like you'll learn that as you listen to this podcast, just because I can't remember all of them off of the top of my head. But yeah, I'll definitely be sharing them if they're appropriate to what I'm talking about at the time. And yeah, thank you so much for listening. I hope that you stick around. You can follow my podcast on whatever streaming platform that you're listening to it on, and rate it as well if you would like, or you can continue listening and then rate it. Would love a good 5 stars. You can check out my YouTube channel and see everything on video, because I definitely will be recording a lot of my life on there. And then if you want to ever message me or follow me on Instagram, my username is Sophia_IJ. You can definitely reach out to me if you ever have questions or comments or things that you want me to talk about. I am open to having suggestions or hearing what people have to say. You can also always leave, if you're on Spotify, I'll have a Q&A box, and you can always leave comments on there too, or suggestions as to what you want to hear. Definitely want to get you guys involved in the podcast. And yeah, that's pretty much who I am. I'm glad that we could cover at least the surface of who I am as a person and the life that I've experienced so far, and going forward I'll keep sharing. And yeah, it's about to get really personal, so I hope you guys like this podcast. I will see you next week when my new episodes drop, and don't forget to listen to every episode that came out today, because this is, I think, the only time that you're ever going to get 3 episodes in one day. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to go find me on my social platforms, and I look forward to talking to you guys some more. Bye.